The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, greetings and felicitations, everyone, one and all. Welcome to the program this evening. Thanks for coming by. Happy Memorial Day. I hope you've had a great weekend because now 9 o'clock here at night, Central Standard Time in the United States, here on the Intrepid radio program. It is the end of the Memorial Day weekend, the end of the gateway to summer, and the end of any festivities that you had this weekend. Although some of you had to work, I know Rainey had to go in for a little bit today to fill in for somebody. And so she was gone for a few hours, but she enjoys it. So it was a thing to do. We didn't have any camping trips planned. We weren't barbecuing out at the lake or hopping on the pontoon boat or doing anything like that. It was actually a little rainy and wet here today, a little cool, but it was nice. It was that so I like to call it that sweet melancholy sort of lighting to the sky and on and off, sprinkling rain, and the sun shone a little bit, peeking in and out. The light was bright, then it was darker. It was one of those days. And melancholy, I know, stands for depressive kind of a day. That's not what I mean by that. So I say a sweet melancholy. It had a bit of a sense about it of a beautiful day, but just a little wet, a little cool, and not bad at all. So we didn't do any sun tanning today, in other words. Didn't get out and get to the lake. I know I have friends who have businesses up in this town that do the inner tubing down the river on during the summer months. That was a no-go today, probably all weekend. So although it was nicer yesterday. So I hope your day was well. I hope you had a good time, whatever you were doing with family, with friends, or whatever you were doing. So, like Susie Q says over in the chat room, if you are over on the YouTube channel, hit that thumbs up button. That helps us over there with whatever the algorithms are. We appreciate that. And Roger Rabbit says he spent today and yesterday putting down 180 bags of mulch for a city I'm landscape contractor for, and the soreness is setting in. After 180 bags, I'm sure we get maybe 8 to 10 bags for our front yard gardens. And by the time you're done with 8 to 10 bags, you're like, oof, boy, I haven't used those muscles in a while. So I understand what you're talking about, Roger. And so, hey to everybody, by the way. Good to see you all coming in. NB, good to see you today. And Susie Q, Roger Rabbit, Randall Flag, good to see you tonight. And who else we got in here tonight? That might be it so far well, we've got a lot more people watching the show than are participating in the chat room. Come on in. You don't have to, but if you'd like to, come on in and talk to everybody and have a good time with that. And I want to mention before I get going too much into other things tonight. Oh, wait, Susie Q said we just found a funnel across the road. Rouge winds came up right away. You mean rough or rouge? Rough winds came up right away after tiny storm, big winds. And so you see it a funnel cloud. Not cool. Too close when it's right across the road. The only thing is, though, if you see it right across the road, it's probably already moving really fast that way. So over the ranch when we had it once, I saw swirling clouds. They were swirling around each other like this very slowly, but the whole system was moving. And so by the time it started to gather up, it was miles away that way. So good that you're not having a funnel cloud right over your house. Just a field. So tonight I want to make mention of something that happened to me last night. And this is always exciting when this kind of thing happens. If you're on my social media, you've already seen me talk about it. But I made mention of it because it was kind of exciting, even for somebody like me who you'd think some of this would be a little old hat by now, but still. And by the way, look at me. I've been a bum all day today. I have not combed my hair or washed my hair. I haven't showered. I'm not stinky or dirty or anything, but I got up this morning and I threw on a shirt. I still have my shorts on from sleeping. That's all I've been. Just been a bum all day. And Rainey had to go into work, and I had to do things around here, and I was just like, I'm a bum today. By the way, look at this. I was wondering where this came from. This was sticking under the pad on my desk, and I did not realize this was Rainey. This is Rainey's old business card. Rainey's old business card from when I met her. Rainey Olson, nail specialist. She was doing pedicures at the salon for you, even though she was a massage therapist. That's her old phone numbers for her business over there and so on. She worked for this company. That was just sitting underneath my desk pad here. I wonder where that came from. Rainey must have found it, or the kids, and stuck it under there. This thing's got to be 25 years old, that business card. Anyway, I almost pulled it out of there and threw it while I was subconscious without thinking about it. Threw it away. So there it is. Rainey Olson was my wife, who is now Rainey Roberts. Has been for almost 20 years. So anyway, you're a massage therapist too, Gina. I need a massage. Like you'd think, because my wife's a massage therapist, I'd get a good massage every now and then. I hadn't had a massage in years. First, my wife being at home, it's like when that was her job and what she was doing for pay. Nah, not getting a massage at home. Every now and then, a shoulder thing or a leg thing. And now it's like, and now she's injured her shoulder about a year ago, and she stopped doing. She's going to have a surgery in her shoulder of some kind, and she can't do the massage the way she did anymore. And so she hasn't given a massage to anyone in the last year. So that's too bad. Hey, Randall Flagg, good to see you. Yesterday, my daughter pointed out that I have some white silver hair atop my head. News to me. Randall Flagg, I got to tell you something. I started getting flecks of this in my temple. The first time somebody noticed it, I was 26 years old. I was having flecks in my hair. So, I hear Roger Abbott says, I hear Uncle Dave now. Olson. Only thing needed to be said. We all know what that means if we've been around long enough. Yes, you do. Olson. So, not many tornadoes in Nevada. That's good, Chuck Thurston. But the wind, called a Washoe Zephyr, it sustained 80 miles per hour. So, yeah, she does. It's rotator cuff issues, Gina, and it's also something else. They want to do some surgery on the muscle in there. I don't even understand fully what exactly it is. So it sucks for her right now, because there's times where, it used to be she'd walk by and in a very loving way, I'd grab her by the elbow and I'd be like, hey, come here. And she'd be like, oh my God. And I'd send her into a tailspin. So anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. So last night, and this never gets old, and it's still exciting when it happens. And if you're on my Facebook page or my Instagram, you've seen me write about this today. I put up a little something. I was late night last night. It was after midnight, and I'm in bed. Rainy's sleeping. I've got the TV going. I'm looking for, my brain wasn't settling, and I'm looking for either a good history show or a good ghost show or something on YouTube. YouTube's my go-to. Hey, Claudette, welcome to the show. And so I'm flipping through and I see one on Is This Moses? And it's got an Egyptian statue. And I thought, what organization is this or what person is this? And I saw that the organization was the Armstrong Institute for Biblical Archaeology. And they publish a magazine as well that's called something in the rocks or something in stone. I can't remember what the exact title it is. Let's see. Let the Stones Speak is their magazine, and the the host of this little podcast that they do, he had a guest on last night, and this guest was Christopher Eames, Eames. Christopher Eames, who is a contributing editor for their magazine and a researcher in biblical archaeology. And he wrote this article on who was the Pharaoh of the Exodus and a while back for their magazine. Then he wrote this new one, Is This Moses? And he shows the picture of this person. Let's see here. Let's see if I can bring it up and I can show this to you while I'm doing this. Do I have it in here? I know I saved it, but so I thought I'm going to give this thing a listen because I want to see what he has to say. I'm not always super interested in hearing other people's theories because, as you all well know, I've pretty established in my own theories. But I've also said I need to maintain my open-mindedness so I know what other people are thinking. Can I be swayed on my thoughts and on my conclusions? And so I've always said I'm 98% convinced about some of my theories that I've put forward. And so I gave this little show a listen last night. And let me I'm stalling with my words here just for a second because I want to load the picture up. And this is the picture that was on the header of this little podcast. Let me find it here. Date added, blah, 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 not that one. Here it is. Okay, I'm loading this up right now. Now, so I opened this up and, it seemed like it was just going to be pretty straightforward. This is the cover of their magazine from last month, or their most recent issue, Let the Stones Speak. And Christopher Eames wrote this article, Is This Moses? And he's looking at this statue. And of course, the statue, hey, Ryan Gale, welcome to the program. The statue is of that statue back there, of Sunenmut, that I've got sitting right back. Oh, wait, you can't see him now, even in miniature. There he is. So is of that. It's not the same statue, but it's the same person. So I gave it a listen. And as he was talking, I found it very interesting that the host asked him, well, so what was the influence on you? What got you to go down this path of believing that this Sunenmut character is who you think was Moses? And what did he up and say? He said, well, he says, I'd been reading this book. And he said it was a book that was co-authored and by Scott Allen Roberts, as it is on the title of the book. It's even here. You just can't read it because this is in, I don't know if this is Cantonese or what kind of Chinese that is. The book was published also in Chinese, as you can see. And it doesn't have any color in it. So they took all the color pages out for the Chinese edition. But he said Scott Allen Roberts, and he says they presented their two theories. And he says, I really was taken with the Scott Allen Roberts theory. And he said his seemed to me, he said, to make the most sense, to line up with a lot of my research. And he mentioned me 2 or 3 times more throughout the show. And I thought, that is really cool. And I sat up in bed and I went, oh, there's my book. They showed the cover of the book. And then he made a couple more references, 2 or 3 references to some of my points that I had made in the book. And why he believed that he said he thought I did. He says, I think he could have gone a little further in establishing his case than he did, even did. He says, but he says, from what I saw, he says, I lined it up with the things I know and I did my own research. And he says, I think that this guy, he says, he asked him at the end, the host did. He says, so do you think this guy right over here, do you think that's Moses? And he said, well, he says, it's always hard to take a stand. But he said, oh, and he made mention toward the beginning. He said, Scotty Roberts, he says, it's sentiment. There it is. Boom, period. And he says, that's exactly what he wrote in the book. And I laughed. And so he said, I've got to say that this guy is, the probability of him being Moses, he says, is so high because the historical facts in Egypt are so perfectly aligned with biblical content and dating systems. He says, it's unbelievable. And so I felt there are days you do the things you do and you say, why am I doing this stuff? Oh, have I just wasted my time? That book hasn't made me a millionaire, kind of thinking. You go, that doesn't pay my mortgage. It has a few times, but it hasn't, paid off my house or anything like that. And that book that came out in 2012. And so it's been 12 years since that book came out. And this radio show was just two days ago. And it was when it was recorded. And so I am sharing this with you because how excited and elated I was to find out that our book, and here's one of the magazine ads we had done for the book. It was actually a full page ad. It was a back cover ad. So it has been written, so it has been done. But do we know the real story? Published by New Page Books back in 2012. And this was an ad I did for it. And of course, this is the cover of the book right there. So you can see that's the front cover on the right, the back cover on the left, and the spine going down the middle. As if you're unfolding the book, like this and looking at the cover. So that's the wrap cover right there. And there were some great testimonials we got for the book, some great write-ups. I've got some things right here. You can read them. They're right on there, but right on the back of the book. This was right after we did the Paradigm, or just before the Paradigm Symposium. And Eric von Daniken, author of Chariots of the Gods. Now, a lot of your very serious scholars are not going to look at him and go, oh, good job getting Eric von Daniken's take on the book, because they don't see him as a real scientist. But he said the characters of Moses and the topic of the Exodus are historical enigmas that have given rise to entire branches of Egyptological study and research for centuries. I applaud Scotty Roberts and John Ward for their research and contribution to this study. While there exist many different opinions and conclusions to these matters, their efforts represent a passion and scholarly approach to the topic. I am honored to endorse the Exodus reality. And Eric von Daniken, author of History is Wrong and Evidence of the Gods, and of course, the original Chariots of the Gods. And so that was pretty cool. And then Lorraine Evans, who's written on Egyptology, has some books out, a book on the Exodus, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It's on my shelf here somewhere. She said, an intriguing narrative, the Exodus reality sifts through the sands of time as it reveals some of the shadowy aspects of ancient Egyptian New Kingdom. In the Indiana Jones in true Indiana Jones style, Roberts and Ward take the reader on a personal journey of exploration, skillfully weaving powerful themes upon clear emotional expression as they attempt. Sorry, it's my glasses and my eyes and the smallness of this type. As they attempt to expose the real identity of the figurative Moses and uncover the epic events surrounding the biblical Exodus. A complementary blend of scripture, ancient legends, history, and archaeology. It will stir your curiosity. And I love that. Some cool ones, and there were more on the inside, I do believe. So that was the book. And just in case you have never read the book or seen the book, I showed you the ad. These are some of the this book. I said in my post I put up for the book today, I said if you've never gotten the book, you can get it now over at Amazon. And come for the content, stay for the pictures. So for those of you who are maybe like, oh, is that a scholarly text? We wrote this very down to earth and for people to enjoy and to understand. And some of you have heard me read the entire book on this show a few years ago, and it's on this my YouTube page. But I threw up here some of the pictures that are in the book. We had 2 color sections in the book of 8 pages, so 16 pages of color, 8 spreads. And here's just a few of them to give you an idea. Now, as I was loading this up, I noticed some of these are the older versions. I grabbed the wrong versions out of the file. The older is just the typeface. This is the updated typeface. This is what we used in there. This is presenting Hatshepsut, who is the pharaoh who would have appointed Senenmut over there to his almost 100 royal titles. And so this is just a glimpse of what the inside of the book looks like. And this is before I had updated the text. This was a little too hard to read, so I went to what you saw in this first one, this style of text. So these are just some of the things, and you've seen these pictures before. Statue of Senenmut and Neferuri, Hatshepsut's daughter. There is, you see down in the lower center, you see there's like an ink drawing on the wall. That is the pornographic, quote unquote, graffito that you would find on the walls of the workers' cave, which is up. If you look at the picture on this one, up in the upper right-hand corner of this little montage, you see the cliff faces up there. And this is all above. You see her temple, Hatshepsut's temple, down on the way in the background. You see the long row of colonnades, 2 rows of them. That's her funerary temple. And up about midway into the cliff face is this little cave right here that you see with the picture of me in the fedora, all dirty and dusty coming out of this cave. That little cave is way up high in that wall you see in the far background, that cliff face, where this graffito down below me there is a picture of, it is Senenmut shagging Hatshepsut. She's naked, he's shagging her. She's wearing the pharaonic headpiece, and she's got the snake in the front, and it's a little hard to make it all out in this, but so there you go. And some more of the pictures from the book just to show you. This is the stuff. This is the way the spreads in the book look. That's John and I at Karnak temples. And of course, this is Lake Malkata. This is John's theory of the Exodus. This is down just south of Luxor. And the Theban mountains are to the top of that little picture, the inset. That lake was a man-made lake built by Amenhotep III. And that would have been, and today it's just this fertile pasture land or agricultural ground with these little cities. If you look at that picture of the lake, you see the blue lake. It's shaped like a T, in a kind of a T-shaped. Down below that, you see these villages that are built up like it would be under the crossbars around, well, actually around all the borders. You see these little villages, and this is a high aerial shot. And so all these villages are built up, and this is all agricultural ground. And then John and I here are standing in front of some of the corroded, crumbled walls of that lake. So there you go. So this is John's theory. Amenhotep, son of Hapu. And of course, you saw that one. So that's what you get with this book. So if you haven't got it, avail yourself of it. I think you'll enjoy it. And you can go find it on Amazon. It's called The Exodus Reality by Scott Allen Roberts and John Ward. So that's all I got to say about that. But that was fun. The whole point of this whole exercise was to let you know that I saw that on a show last night, and it was so cool. And it makes you feel fulfilled. It's like, this is not a great contribution to humanity, and I stopped starving, and I changed the forms of government or anything like that. But this is my own little way to say, I feel now like when other people are picking up my work and basing their scholarly work on some of the things I postulated in that book, that makes you feel a little accomplished. And so that's why I'm sharing that. That was a good time. I enjoyed that, seeing that. So there's that. Now, let's move on to Memorial Day. Again, I hope you had a great Memorial Day today. Oh, and thank you, Claudette, showing my daughter your artwork. She has a book she has finished. Oh, very cool. Well, I'd love to see her work. Thank you. And thank you, Gina Epic and Susie Q. Cool. So, I wanted to show you this picture as well. I've shown this once before. This is a man, because it is Memorial Day today. What is Memorial Day? We all know Memorial Day, and we stretch the boundaries of it a little bit. But Memorial Day is the day when we remember those who fell in battle. Our soldiers who died defending this country. And it's not necessarily my grandfather served 50 years ago in the war. And although you can apply it, and if he's passed on, you can say my grandfather fought in service of this country and he died. But Memorial Day is to remember our fallen, who have fallen during battle. Abraham Lincoln, in his Gettysburg Address, talked about that, and we'll bring that up in a minute. But this fellow, I just want to remember him on Memorial Day, and doubly because today it would be the 52nd anniversary of the day I met this old man, this old gentleman. He is younger there in that picture than I am now. He was, I believe he was 60 years old in this picture. And this is the man. I've told the story. I won't give you the long version tonight, but when I was 11 years old, I bumped into this man at a little cafe a couple of blocks from our house while I was buying cheeseburgers for my brother and I. And he was having a cup of coffee, introduced himself as Bill, and he ran a bus route for one of the big Baptist churches in town, and was out kind of canvassing the area looking for kids who didn't have a place to go to church, is the way he'd put it. He'd go knock on doors, or if he saw kids, different day and age, folks. This is 1972. So it would be the 53rd anniversary, by the way. And so he would approach kids, ask if he could talk to their parents, and invited them to Sunday school. I went. He invited me. I went the next day and became a born-again Christian, and in the Baptist church. And then he became, as the summer went on, he became a mentor of mine. And for 4.5 years, He was like my dad, and I didn't have a dad in the home. And so, and my mom was fine with it. He was a stonemason and a bricklayer, a fireplace builder. That's what he did, and he trained me a bit in his craft for the first few years. I was 11 to 15 when I knew Bill, and he passed away of prostate cancer in 1976. God, that seems like such a long time ago now. But this picture was taken 1 year to the day after we had met each other. We were like, people thought we were either father and son or grandfather and grandson. And so we always were together, always hung around together, inseparable, constant. Bill and I went camping, we went fishing. I went up to his place, and with he and his wife, built a big garden. He taught me gardening, all of this kind of stuff. And then he taught me his trade, of course, and all of that. And so he was today is a good day to memorialize him, because we met on May 27th, 1972. And this photo you're looking at was taken on May 27th, 1973, a year later. It was one of those Kmart, pictures for 99 cents type of thing. And I had one done, and he had one done, and I had his framed sitting on my wall, and mine was framed on his wall. Disappeared long, long ago. But anyway, all that to say, I just want to give a little memorial for Bill Fisher. He did not serve in the military. As he said, let's see, if he was 60 in 1972, he was born in 1912. And the year the Titanic went down. And so when World War II came around, he tried to enlist, and he was flat-footed, and they wouldn't take him. So he never did serve in the military, but he became a mentor, a big brother type, and somebody that really set some things in stone for me for the rest of my life. So here's to old Bill. Thank you. And probably see you again someday. And so I wanted to share that with you, because I've told the story about him before. And so let's get a little bit into what I wanted to talk about today with Memorial Day proper. We all know that that Memorial Day, there's something about Memorial Day that that there's a formality in its definition that we're going to get into in a second here. But before we do, I was trying to play and download a little segment of the movie Saving Private Ryan. Now, many of you have seen that movie, and I've talked about it before, about the emotions of that movie that absolutely gripped me. And if you don't know the film, it's World War II. It starts with D-Day, the landing at Omaha Beach. And it's a captain played by Tom Hanks, and his like 8 or 9 men in his unit that he handpicks they've been given orders to go find this young private by the name of James Ryan. And they say, why are we going to find him? Well, we're going to send him home. He's one of 5 brothers, and all 4 of his brothers were killed in action. And they had to send that letter, go visit his mom on a farm out in somewhere. And they depict this in the movie. And they said, we think it's only proper that a woman who has lost 4 of her sons, that her son should be sent home, her surviving son. So they're sending Tom Hanks and his guys to go find him and bring him home. And at the beginning of this, they're talking about this in the general's office before they've made the decision. And, why are we bringing this guy home? And he read, this general, brigadier general, in the film uh, read this letter. He says, here's why. And he said, and he pulls out this old letter. And he says, I've kept this. And it says this: to Mrs. Bixby, Boston, Massachusetts. Dear Madam, I have been shown in the files of the War Department a statement of the Adjutant General of Massachusetts that you are the mother of 5 sons who have died gloriously on the field of battle. I feel how weak and fruitless must be any word of mine which should attempt to beguile you from the grief of a loss so overwhelming. But I cannot refrain from tendering you the consolation that may be found in the thanks of the Republic they died to save. I pray that our Heavenly Father may assuage the anguish of your bereavement and leave you only the cherished memory of the loved and lost, the solemn pride that must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom. Yours very sincerely and respectfully, A. Lincoln. That's the letter that Abraham Lincoln wrote to Mrs. Bixby of Boston, Massachusetts, back on November 21st, 1864. And so this was not the beginnings of Memorial Day. It started at a different time, and we have recently talked about this before. But I want you to hear something else that Lincoln said that most of us are familiar with. Many of us had to memorize this for school, in our school days, I should say. And this is the Gettysburg Address. And I want you to hear what Lincoln had to say when he wrote this. It goes like this. It's not very long. Keep in mind, Lincoln wrote this, I had heard, on the back of a napkin or a piece of paper on the train on his way to Gettysburg. And the whole thing lasted under 2 minutes, I believe. While somebody else was there, a great orator was there, and I do not remember his name. He went on for 2 hours. This is what they did back then. We didn't have television or 24/7 news or satellites. We had great orators who gave great speeches. And so Lincoln came up next after the people had listened to this guy for 2 hours, and maybe some of them were very thankful it was only 2 minutes long. But here's what Lincoln wrote. And as I say, many of you know this by heart. This was delivered on November 19th of 1863, almost exactly 1 year prior to that letter he wrote to Mrs. Bixby. He says, 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. I mean, how can you say it more perfectly than that? It's emotional to me because of the maybe it's empathy, maybe it's the ethos of it, the nature of what he had to say is so powerful that you can not but be moved by it, as well as his letter to Mrs. Bixby a year later. And then his own death uh, just a handful of months after that, April of 65. So the meaning of Memorial Day sometimes gets lost in translation, I think. It originally was called Declaration Day. It's a day of remembrance for those who've died in service to the United States or service of the United States, however you want to say that. It's those who died while in service to the country. And you know, we make anymore, I don't think we understand or appreciate anymore, or at least I think the newer generation doesn't anymore really understand the power of giving oneself to one's country. Now, there's not a soldier out there that joins saying, I really hope to die during my service. No, they want to live. They want to enjoy what they're fighting for. But they're the ones who stand in the gap and make the difference. And so when they die and they give themselves in this cause, it might not be because they have said, take my life, I am giving it away for the cause of my country. But no, they've put themselves in harm's way, knowing that that might be an inevitability, that they may lose their life fighting for their country. Now, we may all, and I think this really rose up between the Korean War and the Vietnam War. What rose up was this, I don't want to call it an evolution, a progression of thought that led us to believe, well, maybe just because we're American soldiers doesn't mean that we should be honored for our deaths, because we might be in a dishonorable war or a war that we agree with. What are we doing over here, man? I'm sure you had some of that in World War II as well. But that does not dilute the nature of what a soldier does. They give themselves to the cause. They may have different aspirations. They might want to say, I'm going to get through this, and maybe I'll work for the Army after that, and I'll get my retirement at age 40, and on I'll go with doing my, they have their plans. But so many have died. I heard somebody on the one of the 24/7 live news channels I was listening to today on the internet, and he was some adjutant of he had been wounded, and he became a somebody that had to deal with the parents and the families of young soldiers who had died. And he on stateside doing the visitations and delivering the message, delivering the gold star, delivering what to say, I have bad news for you. Your son gave his life in service for our country. Your son has died in action. He was doing that, and he mentioned, all I heard, I was in the middle of doing 10 things, and it was playing in the background, and he said something to the effect of, he said, I was once the man to whom somebody had to contact my parents because I was injured in battle. And he says, now I'm the man that has to go talk to the parents who've lost their children in battle. And he says, I have lost, he mentioned to the host of the show, he said, I have lost 30 friends, have died. And he says, and I'm the one that's still here. He says, I'm the one left. And you talk about survivor's guilt. There are many soldiers that have that feeling of, my friends have died and I am here. So I can give my life to other new things I've spared for a reason, but they're still in the back of their head. My friends died and I didn't. But this is what this man was talking about, what he had to do. And of course, it was all in context of Memorial Day. And there's this little article I pulled up called At the Heart of Memorial Day, An Appreciation of Duty to One's Own Country. And it was written by David Kim for the Army Times. This is a very military point of view. But I pulled this up because I wanted to read this to you. And I thought it was a very poignant take from somebody in our nation's military that writes about honor and duty. He says this: Memorial Day is a powerful time to reflect on a question essential to citizenship. What is duty to country? And how is it relevant to our lives today? Let me ask you that question, folks. I want you to think about this as I read this. Let's say you are immigrating to the United States or becoming a citizen, and you have to answer that question. How would you answer this? What is duty to country? What does that mean? If you're in the chat room and you want to write about it, you can do that. What is duty to country? How is it relevant to our lives today? How often have we pondered the dimensions of duty to our nation, much less spoken about it to our children? If you have kids, have you spoken to your children about duty to nation? Odds are not a lot of people out there still do that. According to a Google viewer, use of the word duty is down 25% since 1988. Use of the word, searches for the word, down 25%. And it's down by a factor of 3 over the last 100 years. So it's not surprising that in our me-centered culture, the concept of duty is becoming increasingly unfamiliar. Where do we look for guidance and inspiration? Stephen Pressfield's historical fiction novel, Gates of Fire, captivatingly illustrates how duty can transmute from obligation to honor, from a vision of the present to an investment in the future. Obligation to honor. It's the story of the Battle of Thermopylae and the 300 Spartans. along with roughly 7,000 other Greeks who chose to stand and die, giving Greece precious time to organize a defense against the invading Persians and Artaxerxes, if you remember your history. I'm sure many Greeks initially acted out of what we commonly consider duty. I'm duty bound to do this, or perhaps a desire to avoid shame or to fulfill the requirements of the role they'd been cast in. Soldiers are expected to fight, after all. But surely this most elemental form of duty alone can't explain their decision to fight to the death. Every soldier knows they're taking a risk in war, but the Greeks at Thermopylae knew this was a suicide mission. Why then did they choose to lay down their lives for their country? What do you think? Why did they choose to lay down their lives for their country? We've all seen the movie. Well, many of us have seen the movie 300. It's a very stylized retelling of this tale, written by Frank Miller. But it was love. You don't think of Sparta and think of love. Sparta was, well, that's where we get our word, what Spartan decorations you have in your house, etc. But it was love for the men on their right and left who were willing to die for them. Love for the freedom their sacrifice would bequeath to their families and their countrymen. And midwife to this sacrifice born of love was the hope that their example would inspire future generations to bear the heavy burdens that freedom demands. Hi, there it is, Johann. You can take my life, but you can't take my freedom. Freedom. You might take my life, but you'll never take my freedom. And can you imagine finding yourself in a position? How many of us wake up in the morning and go, today is the day I'm going to die? Not many of us. Today is the day I'm going to give my life for a cause or for duty or obligation or even love. It's not until I think that a person is in that situation that they find their, I want to say their courage to say, damn the torpedoes and full speed ahead. It's not a bravado at that point. It's one of, I'm not walking away from this, but I'm going to give my all to it. And this is how they transform duty from obligation to sublime, from an act that shaped not only their present, but also spoke to ages hence. This is duty to country in its most shining and unalloyed form. Some 2,500 years later, we can still draw inspiration from this noble and multi-layered example of duty by serving the defense of our nation in ways large and small. After all, our freedoms stand on the foundation of our armed forces. You realize that? All the anti-establishmentarianist, militaristic, unmilitaristic adversaries you get, our freedoms stand on the foundation of our armed forces and the men and women that make it up. And this is the lesson at the heart of Memorial Day. Our freedom, your freedom, my freedom is fronted by those who would stand in the gap and stand in the way and be willing to go that last full measure of devotion, as Abraham Lincoln said. So few know that we are facing a national security crisis whose remedy lies in reinvigorating a dedication to duty among our youth. The Army missed its recruiting goals last year by more than 15,000 soldiers. That's roughly the size of one division. They'll miss their recruiting goals again this year. Let that sink in. We're running short one division a year when we only have 10. How many more years until our army is too small to be effective, too small to defend us? At the rate we're going. This major security threat is emerging just as an era of geopolitical power struggles intensify. Look at the world around us. Look at Israel. Look at Ukraine. Look at China, Thailand, Taiwan. Look at the Arab nations, what they're doing. Geopolitical power struggles are intensifying, and our military is shrinking. There are many potential reasons for the decline in enlistments. Fewer than 1% of Americans volunteer to serve in uniform. You get that? Fewer than 1% of American citizens volunteer for military service. So many Americans simply don't know anyone who served. Basic civic education in high school, along with exposure to the military as a potential career path, has also fallen over the last few decades, and certainly worsening political divisions are a factor. However, just as the Spartans did in their time of need, America's youth must step forward in greater numbers to serve our nation in uniform. All Americans can be part of the solution by using our voices and influence to encourage a renewed sense of duty to country across this great land. To lift, like Sparta did, a commitment to service in uniform, to rank among our highest national values. Advocate for military service in your communities, to your schools, and especially to your children. From those to whom much has been entrusted, much is to be expected. And all Americans have been abundantly blessed. Let's rekindle our nation's sense of duty. It's our honor and privilege to do so. So let me ask you, Memorial Day, what does it mean? Memorial Day is a military holiday that honors our military. It's a holiday that honors our military. It's a military honoring holiday because it honors those who have done their duty for various reasons and have lost their lives in the course of that duty. That's what Memorial Day is. And that is what it is about. And I have so many things, so many stories I've pulled up. For Memorial Day, but it's already 10 o'clock Eastern time. So we're going to move into the captain's cabin and we're going to open up to everybody's calls. If you've got a story you want to tell, if you just want to talk, call in. I'm going to right now give you the link, and then we're just going to cut out for a minute or two for a break. Here is the link. I'm going to go see if I can find something to drink down here. I am in the downstairs. I got to see if there's anything in this fridge down here that I can drink. There are some sugar-free sodas down here that I don't like. Rainey got them because she thought I'd like them, and I don't. So it's Mountain Dew, sugar-free Mountain Dew Baja Blast, which if I have one of those, it's because I can't find anything else. So let's go out for a break, just very short. Stick around, don't go far. And we will see you back here in just a few minutes.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here. Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave. Well, welcome back, everybody. This is the Captain's Cabin, the after show. And hoorah, says Susie Q. I would say Semper Fi. And thank you to everybody who is here. Barbie D, yes, we are still here for longer. I think Barbie has to take off at about in between shows. So, or in the break. So, Barbie, if you're still here, thanks for being here. If not, I hope you have a good night. And if you remember, I was in the Marine Corps, but for a very short time. And now that I think of it, it does not seem this long ago, but it was 41 years ago. 41 or 42. It was 82 or 83 that I enlisted in the middle of the Reagan era. I went in and I was 22 years old when I enlisted, which was old. I was 4 and 5 years older than a lot of those 17, 18-year-old kids who enlisted. And because of that and my college education, and I also signed on the dotted line for 6 years to be an officer. I was going to go right from boot to officer training. And so is it a higher grade, a higher pay level, et cetera, without getting into all the details of it. And I was going to, let's put it this way, I was going to graduate from boot camp an E level higher than everybody else. And then I was going right to officer training in Pensacola, Florida. I was down in San Diego, California at MCRD, the Marine Corps Recruiting Depot. And as you all know, because I've told the story a few times before, I broke a bone in my lower back. We have no idea how it happened. They claimed it was an existing condition, although I've never had that condition prior to boot camp. And I was given a medical discharge. I could walk, I could function. I just couldn't do any kind of strenuous activity at the time. Doing sit-ups was when I noticed it. Down five vertebrae up, I think, from my tailbone, and I felt it. And they tried everything they could. I got called sick bay commando for the first 2 days of that anyway. And they finally took me over to Balboa Naval Hospital, where they finally did the x-rays and all that. And I remember the doctor coming in, military doctor, and he goes, "Well, son," he says, "I hope you want to go home." I said, "Well, sir, I did not enlist to go home." And he said, "Well, you're not going to have a choice." And so he said, "Here's what happened." He showed me the x-ray and he says, "You're on your way out. We're going to put you." And so I got sent back, and I was there for about another 30 days. They kept me mostly because the unit they put me in, which was called CASCO, or Casual Company, things, I just had to, I have that crack. It's still there. I still have that break in my lower back, which is what's been giving me problems the last 3 weeks. Go figure. 3 weeks ago with my son Sam, I hauled some sofas up the basement steps, and my back was just whack the next day, Monday, 3 weeks ago. And it was giving me real rough problems. I went to the doctor the other day and I said, "What is going on with this?" And they just put me on muscle relaxants and steroids and stuff like that. And so the muscle relaxants I don't like. I took it one time. I'm not going to take those again. It just knocked me out. And so it's better today, but it's still there. It still hurts. I feel it. So all of that to say, what? I served in the Marine Corps, and the mark I left on the Marine Corps, I think it's still there. When my sergeant in charge of our casual company that was shipping out found out I was an artist, he had me do a mural on the wall of the stairwell in Fox Company and down at MCRD. And it's either still there or it's been painted over the years. I have no idea. I would think it was of a colonial Minuteman holding a musket and a big colonial flag waving behind him. So I'd love to see if it's still there one of these days. I don't even know how to look for that stuff. It's probably been painted over, is my guess. That was 40 years ago. So if it's lasted all these years, they'll probably keep it. But they might not. I don't know. Unless it's a project they put guys in Casual Company on. I don't know. So that was the entirety of my military career. And I've told stories about that before. And I didn't even know I was considered a veteran because I had done nothing. I went for training and damaged myself and was no longer usable. So for that cause. So I left. And by the way, before I even left the Marine Corps, I had called somebody who I had applied for a job as an art director. Well, he had hired somebody else in that capacity. And just before I left for the Marines, he called me and said, "Hey, I hired this other person. I should have hired you. I let them go. Do you still want the job?" And I said, "Jerry," I said, "I joined the Marines." I said, "So I'm off to the Marine Corps." Well, when I found out, it was only a few weeks later, I said, "Have you hired anybody?" I called him back and he said, "That position's still open." I told him what happened. He said, "It's yours." So I came home to a position as an art director in an ad agency. And that really was the beginning, although I'd had positions as artist in different shops and different ad houses and publishings, since I was 17. I'm now 22, 23 years old, I think, when I came back. My birthday I was there over November. And so I'm 23 years old, and I had my first real art director job with an ad agency, which lasted me for several decades after that. That was 40 years ago. Hard to believe it was that long ago. So, but I did not think, they told me I would get no benefits. They said, you're not going to be a veteran or anything. That's what they told me, is they're signing me out. Some guy, sergeant guy. And I said, well, okay. I said, I got other things lined up. And it wasn't until I had some problems with this about 10 years ago that I was looking into things, and I got a letter in the mail from the Veterans Administration saying, dear veteran, we had a breach of our security, and all this information, your old information, is part of it. We needed to inform you, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, why am I getting this? I'm not a veteran. And I called on it, and I met the local Marine Corps liaison. And he said, oh, son, let me tell you something. He said, he says, whether you think you are or not, he says, you are a veteran. He says, you signed on that line. You took that oath. He says, whether you served 1 day or 20 years, he said, you're still a veteran, no matter what your level of experience was. And that was the first I learned I was a veteran. And so there you go. And let's see. Oh, Johan said you made a choice to serve and you still deserve the time. Well, thank you, Johan. I appreciate that. And that's basically what they told me. So I'm a veteran, but that's all I've done. So I'm not a combat veteran like JP. I don't know that he's here tonight. I haven't seen him. Must have other plans. So there is certainly that guilt level to say, I'm a veteran and I have some benefits that come from being a veteran, but I'm not someone who ever put my life on the line. And certainly I was one of those who joined way back in 1983. In the back of your head, you knew, well, yeah, of course I'm ready to do my duty and put my life on the line for my country. But you didn't think, because you were already planning. And when I'm out, this is what I want to do. And so, we didn't think that way. You know what my MOS was? It was, I was going to pilot, and now this will date me, 1983. I was going to pilot F-14 fighter jets. That's what I was going to do, and I was going to be a Marine Corps fighter pilot. And of course, that didn't happen. So, and I think about it now already. Had I stayed in the Marine Corps from 1983, if I had served for 20 years, from 83 to 2003, I'd have been able to retire 21 years ago from the military. That's crazy when I think about it, but there it is. Anyway, so all of you out there, I'm sure you've got stories to tell. You got stuff going on. We'll go as long as people want to go tonight. And I wanted to join, says Johan. My father put his foot down and said, no. I couldn't understand, but I didn't join, and my father was Navy. It's interesting. I don't think of any of my current kids as joining the military. And I haven't pushed that at all with my kids. I did a little bit with Sam when he was younger. I thought, a good thing, because he didn't know where he wanted to go, what he wanted to do. And I said, it might be good for you. Join the military. And it's just not an option he took. He actually met with a recruiter once, I think, and was almost excited about doing it, just decided against it for his reasons. And So no, none of my kids are in the military. Flynn could join. Rowan could join. Rowan said she wants to be a cop when she grows. She's a teenager now, and so I don't know if she'll join the military or not. But I don't push it on my kids, but I let them know that option is there. So if we lived in Israel, Israel has always had mandatory service for all young people to join the military and serve for, I think, 2 years. It's mandatory. And I see nothing wrong with that. I really don't. And of course, they're in a part of the world in their country where they've needed to have that in place. So I understand it over there. So everybody, lines are open if you want to call. We've got fewer than normal people here tonight, just because I think of the holiday. But if you're around and you want to call in, you are welcome to call in. Once more, here is the link where you can call in, and I'll see you down below. You'll pop in, and so I'm just going to clear some space here just in case. There we go. So I can see when anybody would like to call in. Turkey is also at the age of 19. They have to serve, says Elderberry. Yeah, there are a lot of countries that have, well, of course, different than service than we do. So, but as I started out the show today telling you about, if you don't have it, that's the book John Ward and I wrote, and it was published in 2012 by New Page Books, Exodus Reality. There's the cover of the book, front and back cover. And again, some of the pictures from the color sections of the book on Hatshepsut and Senenmut. And the whole book is filled with all these pictures. I believe I counted 72 black and white pictures and maps in the book, and 16 pages of color. It's Lake Malkata there. It's one of the other pages. That's John's candidate for Moses. And John's was more of an archetype. John believed that Moses was archetypical, not an actual person. He was comprised of different people from different things that happened, but he still places it right around the same time as my guy, only about 80 years difference in our time periods. Oh, and that's the show that mentioned the book last night. So those Turks saluted me every day, and I was just a buck sergeant. Yep. Your own men don't salute you. So Claudette says, I got this. Oops. You guys are just talking. I missed part of that conversation. Let's see. The worry I went through with my son, Marine 2 tours, Iraq. Never want to live that again, I'll bet. I think it's tougher on the parents than it is the young people who join. I know I'd be worried. And if Sam had joined at the time we were talking to him about it, he's now 23. He couldn't join until he was 17, which was only 7 years ago. No, 6 years ago. Look where the world was 6 years ago. So he'd have been in the thick of it. I'm sure. So, well, I think we may just draw this little baby of a show to a close. I want to thank you all for being here. Those of you who participate in the chat room, thanks for being here. Everybody else, thank you for listening. I sure appreciate your presence here. And we're going to get out of here for now. So we'll see you again on Wednesday. Wendy said something to me today very briefly about wanting to do a Robertson tomorrow. We'll see what her situation is like over there. She's been very busy through the month of May. So it might be next week before we revisit that. But we'll find out tomorrow morning. We'll post it, so watch for it. Otherwise, we're back on Wednesday with Intrepid Radio, and of course Friday as well. So all of you, thank you for being here. Have a very happy Memorial Day, the tendrils of it that are left before tomorrow morning starts the new work week. Short work week. Have fun with that. So in the meantime, live long and prosper.